I am Liz Powell, and I'm the founder of the Breast Cancer Early Detection Coalition and the Women's Health Advocates, as well as G2G Consulting. I'm a lobbyist here in DC. I'm very passionate about women's health. Today, I'm really excited. We're going to have some speakers share some awesome insights today. So I think it's going to be a really good session today. So this is the agenda of what we're going to cover. We're going to start off with some advocates sharing some background on our July 16th day, and then we'll get into some policy updates, advocacy pushes we're working on, and close out with events and questions. So highlights of July 16th, Capitol Hill Day. It was an awesome day. We've got 3 advocates to share what the day was like: Lisa Malia Norman, Nicole Owens, and Katie Smith. So I'm going to take this down so we can have our conversation. So thank you all for joining. I think we'll just have the cameras up for Nicole, Katie, and Lisa. So we can just focus on these awesome advocates. Cool. All right. So thank you so much for coming to Washington and for sharing your experiences and expertise. I wanted to start out with just a couple of questions and just sort of have a little chat here. First off, I wanted to see, had any of you been to Capitol Hill before to do advocacy meetings? Just chime in.
My first time.
First time?
I hadn't been to DC. I had done advocacy locally in New York State, but never to DC.
Okay. And Katie?
I've done advocacy before. I used to work on Capitol Hill. I was also a former lobbyist, like you, Liz, not lobbying anymore, but definitely been there before, but not in the personal capacity advocating for an issue that I personally really care about.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you have a lot of expertise in this area, but it is very different when it's so personal. So, all right, good. Okay, so that's good for people to know. So let's start with you, Nicole. What did you expect of the day and what surprised you?
I don't know if I really knew what to expect. I thought it would be maybe a little more scary than it was, right? Because you're going to the Capitol and it's all, very super professional and but I found everyone really approachable. The day was extremely well organized and it was such an amazing experience to connect with so many other, female leaders and advocates. It was extremely empowering. Um, I found, all the offices we met with, for the most part, to be really receptive and kind. And I was just kind of blown away that they cared, about my story, and took the time to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what did you think, Lisa? What was surprising to you or what did you expect?
I think much like Nicole, I wasn't sure what to expect. So I think I set my expectations very low. I thought, if nothing else, I'll meet some really cool women.
Yeah.
But I hope that, that we all share a shared cause and mission and what a wonderful thing to be a part of. Um, but I wasn't sure politically how it would feel like. Would it feel like we were making an impact? Would it feel like what we were doing mattered? Would they even be listening? And I think it's kind of easy to feel a little bit jaded in the political landscape today, but it was actually really encouraging. And I felt really hopeful the whole time I was there. I felt like, oh, okay, what we're doing does really matter. They do want to hear from us. And like Nicole said, the offices that I went to were very receptive and encouraged more of our stories and more of our voices. And I thought that was like, I came away with so much more than I expected.
Okay, so we have a theme of appreciating having your story connect and that the staff really wanted to hear and that they're actually human beings despite all the political noise out there. So
Yeah,
that's
and so much so that a couple of the offices we went to, Liz, right, the staffer we were meeting with opened up about their own experience. And I felt like we were able to connect on a different level and really make that much more of an impact because it is an issue that does affect everyone, regardless of gender, regardless of age, race. Breast cancer touches everyone.
yeah. And with that meeting in particular, the staffer started out not being very interested. But boy, did it change once she heard your story Anna's story, and then she started to open up more and more. So you're absolutely right. Like we are all our patients, right? In some way, we're all human beings. So I think that's really good for people to hear that there's like real human beings here. Katie, so you have expertise in this. So would love to get your analysis of what the day was like from being a former health staffer, being a lobbyist. What insights do you have to share from that?
So my insights, Liz, I expected to receive talking from points from the women's health advocates, and obviously you provided that. I expected to meet with staffers face to face on Capitol Hill, and obviously we did that. I'll talk about the thing that surprised me and then go back. Honestly, it was the networking and collaboration. I think Lisa may have mentioned this too, networking with different like fellow breast health advocates from around the country. So much so, Liz, that I plan to stay in contact with many of them. One person, an example, her name is Sarah Austin from Illinois, and she and I want to talk about endometriosis. So one
Yes.
thing I love about your organization, right, it's focusing on like all the various aspects of women's health, and making sure that you've created a group of people that can talk about that long term. For
Yes.
me, I was also surprised. I think Nicole mentioned that it impacts, people from all walks of life. We had males a part of our team.
Yeah.
And I think there was a male that actually led my delegation on the Senate side. And it was really such like a powerful show of force for like just them being allies and partners in this work. But from my experience having worked on Capitol Hill, again, receiving those talking points from you, getting the prep work in advance and having a staffer come talk to us, that was extremely helpful.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's really good to hear. So let's talk about our guest speaker at that. We did a luncheon where we did an advocacy training and chance to just get organized, get to know each other a bit before we went to Capitol Hill. I thought that was really helpful for me personally. Our guest speaker was Ruth McDonald with Senator Klobuchar's office, who's one of the co-sponsors of the Find It Early Act in the Senate. And she shared her perspective on what was going on and that what would be most impactful. So, what did you find really helpful in what Ruth shared and sort of how it informed your approach when you were heading over to the Hill? I'm going to start with you, Lisa, since you were new
Yeah.
to doing this lobbying advocacy work. So, what did you think about what she said, and maybe are there tidbits you'd want to share?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I was really grateful to have her there because I think it brought a little bit of the energy from Capitol Hill into the room that we were in. So it gave us a
Mhm.
little bit of introduction of like what we're going to be met with and what's on the plate of the people that we're going to be walking into their offices, what's on their mind, what can we expect to be walking into. I thought that was really helpful. I think her message of keeping it simple, like, don't talk in like big titles and bill names, like keep it simple. We're here because of this act that's going to do this, specific thing for women. And here's our story, because that's what they're going to remember. And I think that's what also gets them to open up and connect with what we're doing. Um, yeah, I thought it was really helpful to just get a lay of the land and what to expect and really look at who we're talking to also as people, right? Because they are humans on the other end, right? And what they're dealing with on the day to day to help us know the best way to approach them and hold their attention. And I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, what did you think, Nicole?
I have to echo a lot of what, Lisa said. And I found her so energizing, right? That they're, as a co-sponsor of the bill, it's like they are, our champion on Capitol Hill. And just, I think she set the tone for the day, right? Of like, this is important. And then I think she gave us a lot of really tactical suggestions, right, about being prepared and having your pitch and your story down, and things like making sure to check if the office you're meeting with has already sponsored the bill, some things. So it was wonderful to kind of have that and also have the support of you and your team, especially for someone who hadn't done it previously. There's a lot to think about, right? So being able to be guided for this day and have an impact from a patient perspective and an industry perspective, and not having to, get bogged down with all of those details, right? Because it could be so overwhelming. So it was amazing to partner with you guys on it.
Yeah. I thought it was really funny when she was talking about how exactly what you're saying. Check on your meeting with this member, like know what bills they're on. And she talked about how she's in a meeting with some advocate and they're going on and on about the bill. And she's like, yes, yes, we're already a co-sponsor. Like, yeah, yeah. You know, you don't need to spend a lot of time this. We're already on it. And so I thought that was good advice because I think us as advocates, we're eager, right? And we're ready to say our talking points and like promote our bill. But if they're telling us, you already got me, you had me at hello, like you don't need to do that. We have to be able to shift and be like, okay, how do we work with you? And so I thought that was really good and funny that she said that. But Katie, you know, again, you're our experienced one. So what did you think was really key that Ruth was sharing and even things she didn't share? Like, what do you think is super key in being a good
So Ruth
advocate?
is awesome. Specifically, she elevated the importance of storytelling and talking about real world experiences to make, policy issues personal and compelling. So Nicole, I'm sure you were able to do that in your meetings. We had two survivors in our delegation of meetings, and that was most impactful. Ruth also let us know that, again, everybody can make a difference. We can have an impact, and we're all important as it relates to the legislative making process. She also stressed, though, even though our environment is up and down right now, she stressed the point of bipartisanship and engaging with members from both sides of the aisle. And I personally believe that that's important too. But I think the most important tactic that she said, talk about your own story. Members want to hear that, staffers want to hear that, because nothing moves legislation like a person that's being impacted directly.
Yeah. And also constituency, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about how important constituents are?
Absolutely. I mean, constituents, I think it's important for folks to follow up with their members of Congress about any particular women's health issue that you care about, particularly in this issue, it was breast health. But constituents move the needle forward for a member. You call your member of Congress, call up their office, either the office in DC or the one that's in their district locally or the state locally if it's in the Senate side, and you tell them about your concern and why it's important to you. And again, I'll pivot back to what Ruth said, tell your story, connect those dots. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's close out with each of you sharing what you think is most important for folks who are watching us now, people who are trying to get the best tips on how to be the best kind of advocate. I think that would be super helpful. So this time we'll start with Nicole.
Thanks, Liz. I think, joining this call is an amazing first step. Being informed, getting connected, getting on the mailing list so that you can stay aware of future opportunities and training opportunities. It takes a bit of time to go and lobby in the Capitol. So, there's easy ways, like you just said, to make an impact without having to travel. You can, like Katie said, follow up with your representatives locally, whether it's a call or a letter. I think you have some amazing templated letters on the website, which makes it so easy to get involved. Literally, all you have to do is add your name and your email. So definitely would encourage anyone to go and use those resources that are available.
Yeah, 100%. They all are home right now for the August recess. So they're doing town halls. Sometimes they just stand at the grocery store entrance just to greet constituents. Like they're doing all kinds of things to try and connect, parades, whatever. So if you have a chance to just go shake their hand and very politely, we're always polite. Hey, there's this Find It Early Act. Would love to have you be a co-sponsor. This is why it's important to me. That type, just a few minutes, that type of interaction is really helpful. And even if you can't get the member, the staff as a former staffer, right? We can tell you, Katie, that we do a lot of the work to get our bosses to do things. So talking to staff also helps a lot. But I'll pass to you, Lisa. What do you think?
Yeah, in addition to that, I want to drive home the importance of staying in contact with your local reps and your state at the state level as well. They really did. I can't drive home the importance of our stories enough. I know it's been mentioned here several times, but they specifically kept asking for that, and especially for when trying to do bipartisan work, how important that is to be able to do that because there's not a lot crossing the aisle at the Capitol level right now. And she said, so it's really up to us, the people with the stories, to do that, to get that message across, no matter where you're at. And you don't just have to be a breast cancer survivor to have a powerful story. We had a young man with us who was talking about his godmother, and partners and caregivers have powerful stories about what they care about too.
Point. And speaking of stories, do you want to share a little bit? Don't you run a podcast and you're doing some great work on breast cancer? Let's get the word out about that.
Yeah, thank you. Specifically around exactly what the Find It Early Act is about, that dense there's always a tongue twister for me. The breast density screening, that adjunct screening, and the gaps in care that happen there. The Voices of Hope series that I'm doing on our YouTube channel for the Love of Cups is highlighting those stories, whether women got diagnosed with breast cancer or not, just what it's like living with dense breast tissue and trying to get that screening and what that's like to have that reassurance and that quality of care for that process, and how difficult it really is in many cases to have that get done.
All right. Katie, you want to bring it home?
I do. Liz, I think what I think is most important, visibility and impact. Nicole and Lisa already talked about, raising the profile of women's health advocates by continuing the ongoing relationship with congressional offices. So I won't overstate that point, but I do want to make this personal plug. I would personally like to see you, Liz, as the founder, and the rest of the leadership have more media moments. So what I mean by that is press events, online platforms. If it's traditional TV broadcasting and social media, I think those are places where we can continue the messaging and communicating with different people who will be allies to us. I also think everyone should continue to like and share the Women's Health Advocates post online to further build the coalition strength year round. Again, that will keep the messaging going, the momentum going, and for folks just to be aware about the importance of early screening and how we can protect women and their breasts and their families, because if they're healthy, certainly the people that they love are healthier too.
That mute button. Okay, great. This was super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, for coming to Washington, for being these amazing advocates. It really does make a difference. And I think you are inspiring a lot of people to do the same. So we're going to keep getting bigger and bigger turnout at these advocacy Hill Days. So I'm really excited. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I think I'll go back to the slides. Cover a few more topics here and switch to, is it showing correctly, teammates?
Yes, we see policy and advocacy. Yes.
It looks like the slideshow. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just quick updates. So FY 2026 appropriations process is now underway. And right before the August recess, Senator or Chair Susan Collins made sure that they did a few bills. So one of which is the Labor, Health and Human Services bill. And there's actually great language around women's health broadly. And I did a post on LinkedIn where I included all these key paragraphs. And it was things like $1.5 billion for the ARPA-H program and the $100 million Sprint for Women's Health program. Language around all these terminated grants from NIH and requiring a report back on the status of these, why they were terminated, and then requiring their reinstatement once the bill is enacted, which is huge. And there were some on breast cancer in that. So in that list of terminated grants. So there's some really positive language and funding levels, much higher than what was in President Trump's budget proposal for FY26. So that gives me a lot of hope. However, the House has not done theirs yet. They're going to do their bill for health funding programs in September. And we expect that to be less than the Senate. So they will have to negotiate and work with the president to finalize that, which makes our advocacy at this time really important. And that advocacy is not just for the appropriations language and funding around women's health, but specifically breast cancer. There's a breast cancer research line in the defense bill in particular that's really important, that actually is getting funded at the same level as previously. So level funding is actually a win right now. So that's good. So our advocacy between now and through end of September into October is really important for them to hear that we care about women's health. We care about these breast cancer bills. We want you to co-sponsor. So keep that in mind. And as I think Nicole mentioned, we have this online advocacy tool where you can go find the letter you want to send in and tweak it. I always encourage personalizing it, add in those few sentences or even a whole paragraph. The more you add in, the better. That really personalizes. You can share your story, the story of your loved one, why it's important to you, your unique angle in Kansas or Alaska or Tampa, wherever you are. I think that's important too, because as Katie said, it's all about constituents. So just know that now is a really good time for that. So we're going to talk about advocacy in a second. So in October, we've got some exciting things happening. One, the Find It Early Act will be introduced on the House side by Congresswoman DeLauro and Congressman Fitzpatrick. So they are planning to introduce in October during Breast Awareness Month. We are planning to amplify and be engaged in that, whether we do a Hill Day or a bunch of Zoom calls or what have you. But we're figuring out that strategy with the members of Congress that are introducing the bill so that we are most effective. And we actually just had a great call with Komen Foundation to collaborate there. So we're trying to bring as many different groups, voices together on that. The other thing happening in October is HRSA, Health Services Research Administration, is coming out with their women's health preventative guidelines around breast cancer and some other areas. And they actually have stronger language around supplemental screening, which we think is starting to tip things in our favor with CMS interpretation and then eventually private sector. So we are getting closer to getting better coverage for women with dense breasts, women with higher risk, women with genetic risk factors, because we need that additional screening beyond a mammogram. So we're seeing some progress there, and we will definitely be working to amplify that big time. This last topic is on Medicare coverage loss, which is a crucial issue. We're going to have an expert share in a minute here. This is the quick rundown of all the bills, the breast cancer bills that we lobbied for on July 16th that we're continuing to promote. And we at G2G, our team, we're doing all the follow-ups with all the offices we met with to make sure that they have what they need to co-sponsor these bills so that when the boss comes back in September, they can get them on those bills. So I'm not going to go over that again because we've talked about these bills before. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Leona Hamrick, who is going to share more information about this Medicare coverage loss issue. It's really pretty serious, and it's happening like right now. So we need to get active now. So with that, I would love to pass it over to you, Dr. Hamrick.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for letting me join. Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. So stories are important, and I'll tell mine very quickly. I'm a doctoral PA by profession. I've practiced medicine. I'm board certified since 1997. But at the age of 38, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. So this is very personal to me. So I've shifted my career to work on the industry side of medicine in these companies that focus on breast cancer. So what has happened? Right now, I specifically work at a company called Prelude DX. At the moment, we're focused on Decision RT, which is a test that helps women determine radiation therapy benefit. This test has been extensively validated. You can read the petition. We won't get into the details. But essentially what has happened is that a Medicare contractor known as MolDX, MolDX is a subsidiary of Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, has written a draft policy that could potentially block access to biomarker testing, personalized testing for all DCIS. It would not only prevent our test, Decision RT, but it would pull existing coverage for Oncotype in DCIS. From our perspective, from my perspective as a survivor, it's a gross overreach by the government, where if you read the draft policy, and I'm happy to share all of this with any of you, clearly everything is public record since this is under Medicare and CMS. But really, in the statement, they're telling physicians how to practice medicine, and it's very strongly going against the NCCN guidelines, which state that women should be included in shared decision-making when it comes to decisions on DCIS and the importance of radiation, and all of that is being stripped away. We have until the end of August to make public comments, we meaning anyone, right? Any of you as survivors, any physicians, anybody that has been impacted by breast cancer can do that. Jennifer Douglas, who's a breast cancer survivor, a DCIS survivor, and a very large advocate in the space, created this petition that you see on the screen. So the petition was created on change.org to try to really capture a grassroots effort of individuals to get this. We really want the attention of proper Medicare and not these contractors like MolDX that, come on, hang on, we need to stop and think this through. One of the things that happened, this came out on July 17th. They state that there's no direct comparison to clinical pathological features, stating that those are better. The very next day, a publication came out in a peer-reviewed journal that shows that biomarker information is better. It can change the results 50% of the time and help women make appropriate decisions on their radiation. So we know we have new evidence. We know there's things that Medicare should be considering, and they should certainly not be pulling personalized medicine from women in 2025. So we're asking for everyone's help. If you can sign this petition, if you do want to do more, like a letter or speak at any of these open meetings that will occur at the end of August, please connect with me. I put my LinkedIn in the chat. I would love to make all the connections that we can. I really think it takes all of us locking arms to make a difference. Thank you again, Liz, for the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I think that's super important. You can is right there, tinyurl.com/WHA coverage. That's where you can get it. So please, everyone sign on and just, you might want to just cut and paste your LinkedIn so it's like fresh in the chat box. I think that would be good. All right.
I'll post my LinkedIn and the petition. So if you need it, they'll both be there. Thank you, Liz.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So right now you can get active. You can send letters. You just go to the womenshealthadvocates.org. We have a letter just on breast cancer. We have 2 new letters, one on the $9.7 million worth of contraceptives the government is trying to burn instead of give to those in need. And then the other letter is about appropriations funding language and funding levels for women's health research. So those 2 letters are new. We just put in yesterday. So please go click those or click any of the past ones. Like I said, the breast cancer one is there, and your advocacy really does make a difference. We've got some events going on. We've got these planning calls, and I think Smita and Sally are working to cut and paste these links into the chat box. But as you can see, the theme is tinyurl.com/WHA Chicago or WHA PGH for Pittsburgh or WHA Boston. So that's how you can quickly find it. And we hope that you'll get involved at the local level with these efforts. I will say the Chicago event coming up, we've got a breast cancer expert speaking. She's going to be really awesome. These are our in-person events that are coming up all over the country. And we've got Luma invitations for each of these. We've got our menopause congressional briefing coming up on September 16th. Would love to have you dial in for that. We'll be sending more information. These are actual events. So the previous slide was the planning calls. These are the events that they are planning. So please mark your calendar and join us wherever you can. And how to get active. Would love to pass to Smita, one of our co-founders.
Hi, everyone. All right. So we talked about our events a little bit. The recordings for today's calls and the previous calls can be found at our website for Women's Health Advocates. And you can also sign up for updates on both the Breast Cancer Early Detection Coalition and Women's Health Advocates. The things you can do today to get active are you can write letters to your members of Congress. Again, we mentioned previously, make it personal, try to summarize it. You can make it long, but make it interesting because you are basically showcasing why, and this is where your voice is going to be heard. If you want to know who your member of Congress is, you can just do a quick Google search, put your zip code in, and then you can find that out. So it's very simple to do that. We talked about the Medicare coverage petition, which is where you can get that link as well, and you can sign your name and send that off. Then for our events, we have a ton of different events going on in different states. So all of that can be found on our website as well, and we copied and pasted that. You should see it in the copy and paste. You can also go to town halls, visit your members' offices during the August recess. If you need any guidance for this, because I know when I started, I was a pretty new advocate, so guidance is always helpful. You can email us at bcearlydetectioncoalition.org if you have any questions. And then, of course, it's important to share your why on social media also, even if you're not an event person, if you don't want to, necessarily, if you don't have time, that you sit home and you can be an advocate as well. So you can go on social media and just share your why, and we have a link there. And that's it. Back to you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. I don't know if we have questions in the Q&A box. I see one question. Wouldn't contacting representative be more effective than a petition? So in this case, it is a local coverage determination. So I don't know that the member of Congress would help as much, but I don't know, Dr. Hamrick, if you wanted to respond to that.
Yes, thank you. We are working a Hill strategy. So this is a multi-pronged approach, right? Which is why the petition is one piece. So are the public comments. So are the letters. So is the Hill. We're trying to work with media. So I think this is one where we have to come at it from all angles. The implications here are broader than Medicare. If this policy is passed, private payers will follow. So this will take testing away from private payers also. And who's to say if they're going to reverse coverage on Oncotype, which has been covered for 8 years, they won't come after other tests in invasive cancer too.
Okay. And there's a suggestion here about the 5Calls app, making this one of those issues.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that. I'll take a note. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's other ideas there. And then what you and I were talking before this, that if this happens, it wouldn't just be California, right? It would be across.
Right. No. Yeah. This has broad implications. Medicare divides the country into different MACs or different regions, but most of them, when it comes to biomarker testing, will follow the lead of MolDX. So if this policy is passed, it could revoke coverage for all of Medicare, and it also, again, would have implications for private payers. Private payers want to hide under that and say, well, MolDX said this, so we're going to follow them. Now, we have had tremendous in getting these tests paid for, but we don't want that to happen. I don't want any test to be removed from a patient. So we're working hard to fight against this.
And what about a letter directly to this insurance company? Does that
100%. Absolutely. They're accepting open comments through the end of August. I know we're out of time on this call, Liz. It's a little complicated. I'm sure you're not surprised that the bureaucracy can be very confusing.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to summarize all of that. If you can send that out to everyone after the call on how they can submit letters and comments, we would be grateful.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely get that out. Okay. This is great. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for dialing in. Enjoy your August. I know this is a month when people should be, taking a break. So make sure you take that break. And if you are on steering, I look forward to seeing you on our next call using the link for steering. So thank you all again. Take care. Bye.